Hey everybody, this is Jody from Ramp-O-Matic, and today we're going to discuss putting those rivet kits to use. Today we're going to demystify using semi-tubular rivets for your pinball projects. I have a stack of Dr. Dude ramps here that need some flaps, so let's go ahead and give it a try. So if you take a look here, that little divot sticking out of the middle of that punch is what's going to roll that rivet over. So now we have all our supplies in order. I've got the flaps, I've got the setting tool, and I've got just a simple ball peen hammer. Let's take a look at what we have to do to get the right size rivet. Remember what I said before, we want a 32nd to a 16th of an inch of rivet sticking out. What I'm going to do here is orient the flap along with the rivet. And here's a little tip. When it comes to trying to hold the rivet in place, sometimes you need an extra hand, but a piece of masking tape on top of the rivet and the flap will hold everything in place for you temporarily. So you can figure out if that's the right size rivet or not. Now, the washers I have are 30 thousandths of an inch thick, and that just works out pretty peachy for determining if you have enough rivet sticking out or not. Now, I know from doing this many times that a number 6 is like typically the most commonly used rivet for any flap attachment. Now, if you're putting a flap on a Starship Fantasy ramp, they're usually 3/16 plastic instead of 1/8 inch plastic. You're probably gonna have to jump to a number 7 on those. But what you can do is put your washer on there, and just as a rule of thumb, you could put a second washer on there and see if that rivet is sticking up flush. Just flush with that washer means you have 30 thousandths sticking out. And again, you could have up to 60 thousandths sticking out and it's still going to roll over just fine. So now that we've got our correct size rivet, we can go ahead set the divot from inside the punch into the tubular rivet. You don't have to go crazy. We're not chopping firewood here. Just like that. And you can see we started to roll it over, but we're just not quite there. So we're gonna give it a little bit more. And right there, we've got a nicely rolled over rivet. See how easy that was? Piece of cake. You'll take note that I'm using that block of steel that's about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches by 1 inch. And it just happens to work perfect for these ramp flaps. And I'm also using a nice heavy butcher block work surface. You could do it right on your concrete floor. That works very well as well. And that's about it for putting on a ramp flap. See how easy that was? Now, if you're especially astute, you'll realize that I have the flap on upside down. They don't quite line up with the holes. So what do you do when you have a rivet that you need to take out again? Pretty easy. I like to start, I take a drill, and I start with a smaller drill bit than what the rivet itself is. So the rivet's 1/8 of an inch. A 1/16 of an inch drill bit works really well. And what you want to do is just drill a little bit deeper while pushing down. And sometimes you gotta, and all we're doing there is creating more room for the larger drill bit, because what we want to do is just take that part that we rolled over, we just want to cut that off with a larger drill bit. So what I do is get a 9/64 drill bit, just like I used to drill the pilot hole, as we discussed in the last video. And I use that to finish off taking that bit of material off. And if you rotate slightly, what it does is it helps, because the rivet's spinning in there right now. What that does is it kind of helps you grind off that lip. And all of a sudden, it just popped. And you'll see that we're almost free. Just like that. Once the lip is free, the washer will fall right off. And you'll be able to just push that rivet right back out of there. I don't typically recommend using a sander or a grinder on these, because what happens is the rivet head heats up and melts into the plastic. It's not a huge deal, but it's just nice. Sometimes if you're not careful, if you get it really hot, you'll you have a hole in your ramp the size of the washer, because it'll just melt completely through. You don't want to do that. That's why I prefer to use a drill and a bit, because that just chips the metal out of there without heating everything up. So now that we have the flap back in the right direction again, I'm going to go ahead and finish riveting this flap on and show you how easy it is. And hopefully you can get an idea through the video of how much force it takes to set the rivet. You can always hit it again if you don't hit it hard enough, but you don't want to start out swinging for the fences and then wind up doing damage, which it's pretty hard to damage, but on older ramps, you're going to have more of an issue than with newer ramps. There's one. Now, I'm not going to bother with tape on the second one. I'm just going to pull that down. Take my tool. Drive her home. Now we got two nicely applied rivets. Nice and professional. Looks like it came from the factory that way. You can't beat it. And one other thing about flaps. Let's see if I can illustrate this. If you look, right here there's a perfectly round hole, and here's a slot. Some ramp flaps are going to come with that, and some aren't. On all the flaps that I reproduce, I put that slot in there. And that slot is really helpful, because what you want to do is you install this rivet first and this rivet second. And what that's going to do is, if your pilot holes in your ramp for the rivets do not quite line up, it's going to keep your flap from bowing when you get it riveted down. It just gives you a little bit of room to work with in case things just aren't absolutely perfect. It's really handy. So that's the whole point of that. You start with the regular 1/8 inch hole here, and then your second rivet is in the slot. And that's all there is to using semi-tubular rivets from my Ramp-O-Matic rivet kits. Once you learn how to do this, it's so easy, you're going to be kicking yourself for not doing it 20 years ago. If you like the video and you want to see more videos like this, give me some feedback, subscribe to my channel so you get the new videos when they arrive, and we'll meet back here again next time.